Okay, I'm up. Are you gonna share or are you?
I'll share.
Okay.
So I just need to join, right?
Yes.
Hello, sir. Oh,
Did you get reset?
No, I had Nadine sign in under her so I can go.
Oh,
okay.
got it. Very
So
good.
Sandy,
Yep.
probably have a chance to ask you a question in the break. Thank you, Greg.
All right, so I need to join.
Hello, long time no see.
Can you tell me the meeting after?
Yeah.
In 1 minute.
I should see it.
That's right over the top.
Good afternoon, everybody. Please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the September 28th, 2020 meeting of the Lewis and Clark County Commission. For the record, my name is Commissioner Susan Goodese. I have the honor of chairing the commission this year. Across the room from me is Commissioner Andy Hunthausen, and Commissioner McCormick is not with us right now. We hope that he will be able to join us later on today. Also with us in the room, we have in the far away, Nadine McCarty. Nadine is going to be keeping track of the proceedings here today. We also have Karen Rutherford. Karen's going to be handling the Zoom presentations. And we have Chris Cronick. Chris is the person who takes care of making sure that people's comments are put up on the screen, and so she will be doing her best to do that. And then when people are done commenting, we are going to ask you if that is indeed, if we got your comments captured correctly. To my, let's see, over here to my left is Greg McNally. Greg is a planner. You're a great planner, Greg. And also we have next to Greg, we have Peter Taliano, and Peter is the director of Lewis and Clark Community Development and Planning. Thank you, Peter, for all your work. Directly behind me is Roger Baltz. Roger is the county's chief administrative officer. And to my right, we have Nico Hash. Nico is the deputy county attorney on the civil side. And so we will proceed with going through the agenda, and our next item is consent action items. Mr. Baltz, are there any consent action items?
Here we do not have any order.
Okay, all right, right, so the next thing on our agenda is the consideration of resolution 2020-84, which is resolution regarding creating both zoning districts and regulations for the Helena Valley planning area. So a couple of things before we get started. First of all, we ask that everybody mask up. As you realize, we've had to put in a plan with public health, and they have, with their cooperation, they are allowing us to have this meeting in person. So we ask respectfully that you mask up. Okay. So just about the timing of this. We are going to take a break at 3 o'clock for 15 minutes. Our last speaker today needs to be concluded by 4:15. 4:15. Last speaker to be concluded, because this meeting is scheduled to end at 4:30, and we will have motions and housekeeping items that we need to attend to before we conclude. So last speaker finished at 4:15. So the way we are going to work this is the way we worked the previous two meetings. We are going to have two people who are going to testify in person. Then we will go to people who are attending by Zoom, two of those. And then if we have anybody by phone, we'll have two of those as well. We'll just rotate that throughout the afternoon. No one is going to be time limited here, but please do be respectful if you are going to be speaking first. You've got people coming to speak after you, to be sure that everybody is concluded by 4:15 and everybody has had a chance to speak. If you have spoken before at any one of our 3 meetings, we respectfully ask that you let others go first. All right, there we go. And so this meeting the purpose of this meeting is to hear public comment. This is the last of our 3 meetings, and so we will proceed with public comment. And just before we get started, Karen, how many people do we have via Zoom today?
We have 12 participants.
12 participants, okay, all right. All right, and so Greg, do you want to go through with the Zoom participants about how they get recognized, please?
Madam Chair, Commissioners, members of the public, and those participating via Zoom, my name is Greg McNally. I'm with the Community Development Planning Department. Comments for those that are participating via Zoom may be made as an audio statement when the host unmutes you. Once called upon, please state your name and address for the record. In order to document your participation, we ask that you join with an appropriate screen name. If you would like to comment, click on the raised hand button to notify the meeting host that you have a comment, and the host will unmute you when the board is ready to take your comment. In addition, we know that some people might be participating via phone through the Zoom system, and if you have joined us by dialing in and would like to make a comment, please press *9 to raise your hand when you hear the prompt. You have been unmuted. Please slowly state your name and address and make your comment, and when you're done speaking, our moderator will return your call to muted. You may raise your hand again by pressing *9. So again, to participate via phone and you have a comment, you need to press *9. If you're participating via Zoom, please click the raise your hand button to raise your hand. And in a minute, I'll show on the screen the phone numbers to call in. Should you have difficulties with the Zoom platform, you'll be able to call in and use the call-in feature of Zoom to participate. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, very good. All right, so let's hear please from our first in-person commenters, and we'll do 2. And as you might remember, because I think most of you have been here before, that you'll come up, you'll make your statement, and while you, Ms. Chronic will be reading it back, if you could step aside so that we can get the microphone sanitized, that would be really helpful. Okay? All right, so go ahead. Who is our first commenter today? Is there anybody here who has not spoken yet? Because it would be up to you to go first. Come on up, and if you would mask up, that would be most appreciated. Thank you. And now as soon as, and I'm sorry to be such a pain, but as soon as you're up there, you can take it off. Sorry. I know it sounds crazy. Go ahead.
name is Jonna Davis. I am a second-generation builder in Helena. My dad, John Davis, has been a builder in Lewis and Clark County for nearly 50 years. I was literally born into the construction industry. I have personally dedicated 17 years of my life to this industry, providing jobs for hundreds of people and supporting the Helena economy by spending millions of dollars per year in materials and supplies to build dozens of homes per year. I was born in Lewis and Clark County. I went to elementary school, middle school, and high school in Lewis and Clark County. I graduated from Montana State University, and I moved right back to Lewis and Clark County. I also gave birth to both of my children in Lewis and Clark County. So why is this so important for all of you to know? Because I know this community. I was born here, I was raised here, and I live here, and I help build homes in this community for people to live in. I feel that what you guys are trying to do here to us is going to put a ridiculous strain on the industry, on people, on affordable housing, and it is absolutely ludicrous. There is no room for zoning issues like this. As a professional in the construction industry, I absolutely believe that that zoning is important, that we need restrictions, that we need rules, but they need to be within a scope that everyone can work with. What is being proposed is absolutely too much restriction, and it will crush the industry in Lewis and Clark County. If your goal is to drive construction and growth out of the county and into other counties or into the city limits, then you're absolutely going to do that. But as far as supporting the Helena community, this is absolutely not going to benefit anybody in any way. Thank you.
Thank you. Hold up, Ms. Davis. Okay, so now she's gonna read it back to you, and then you give her the thumbs up if that's accurately what you said, okay?
I just need a minute to finish up what you were saying, so I can obviously type as fast as you speak.
Okay.
I'll do my best to summarize this really quickly, okay?
Okay, I have that you are a second-generation builder. Your dad has been in the business for 50 years. You were born and raised in Lewis and Clark County. You help build homes for people that live in this community. This will put a strain on our community and the affordable housing in our community. Zoning is important, but it needs to be within the scope that everyone can work with. The proposed plan is too restrictive and will not work for our county. Does that accurately summarize your comment?
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like me to add?
No, probably not.
Okay, because I can right now.
No, I think that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Okay, next person up, you wanna just line up? Anybody who's not spoken to us yet? Anybody who has not spoken to us yet? Okay, how about Zoom? Do we have anybody on Zoom who has not spoken to us yet? Anybody with their hands raised?
We do not have any participants with their hand raised at the moment.
Okay, it's time for our repeat customers. Please come up, and if you've spoken to us before, please feel welcome to speak to us again.
My name is Joe Nistler. I'm up here a second time. I've attended all three of these meetings. The first meeting I was outside the door and couldn't come in even though there wasn't 50 people in this room. I think this COVID thing has worked out pretty well, and the plan of stifling people's public comment to show up in person. I addressed Andy Hunthausen on this, and public servants of the county and people that are funded by our tax dollars. And I want to ask, do you guys feel that you know what is best for us as a whole? Because it sure seems like you do, and you haven't taken into consideration, and I implore you to take it into consideration, all the opposition that you've got. From the 3 meetings that I've been at, and there's now 500 signatures on the Helena zoning, stophelena.org. There's 500 opponents against this. We can get you copies of those if you need. I implore you to take this seriously. As you take notes, review those notes, that there's not a whole lot of proposition for this. There's just opposition. And the people that do oppose are inside of the city, not inside of the county. It won't be effective. Regretfully, Jim can't be here, and I wish he was. I wonder that a question for consideration is, this started in, maybe the framework for this has been laid out over the last couple of years, but really this started in November and December. How is it that you guys can make such a monumental change, Susan, in the course of 7, 8, 9 months? A subdivision takes 3 years. Seems like a no-brainer to put a subdivision in, especially with the top shelf planners that we have that review this and go through it. They're dotting all their I's, crossing all their T's. It takes 2, 3 years to get lots buildable for all of us to build on and create a living. I don't have anything else to say. I just ask you guys to seriously consider tabling this until after the first of the year. And it's a beg and a plead by the taxpayers and the people that fund this operation here. Last question, Susan, Commissioner Easy. I want to know how your race for Senate's going.
Do we have anybody on Zoom?
We have no participants with their hand raised at the moment.
Okay, all right. Very good. Okay, it looks like we're ready for our next commenter, please.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Don't really have anything prepared.
Excuse me,
Oh,
ma'am,
I'm
your
sorry. Leanne Taylor, L-I-A-N-E-T-A-Y-L-O-R. And I have been at some of the planning meetings before, the public comment meetings, and I think the high point quite clear. I'm not quite sure how the zoning,
Can you speak? in
this
the
one?
microphone?
Okay. I'm not quite sure how this new zoning proposal differs from subdivision, or how it's going to address some of the issues that were brought up. Today, as I said, I'm not prepared, and I have not been to the last 2 meetings, and I'll tell you why. So I'm a local real estate broker, and we are absolutely slammed right now. We have people moving here to work. They cannot find homes, to affordable homes, to move into. And I won't go into great detail, but as both Donna and Joe said, this is just going to create more or less affordable housing. And I can't even understand why we're still going forward with this when there has been virtually everyone is opposed to this. It does not seem well thought out. In fact, right now, this reminds me of the Affordable Care Act, like, let's pass it and then read what's going to happen. I know that some of the sections of the zoning are not complete, and I would just implore Commissioner Hunthausen and Commissioner McCormick to take that into effect. I feel that this is being driven by one source only, and in the face of such opposition, I would just ask you to please table this. It's not complete. It is going to wreck housing prices. Perhaps some of you read the recent article in the Bozeman Chronicle. Home prices in Bozeman from July to August went up. The median price went up $56,000. If we don't have anywhere to build, if we're going to continue to draw out subdivision approvals, we're in the same shape. And I would really just ask you, Commissioner Hunthausen, Commissioner McCormick, to please table this. It's not right, and it's gonna affect too many people. Thank you.
Let's hold up, Ms. Taylor.
Adversely.
Ms. Taylor, I have your comment as you're not sure how this regulation is different than subdivision regulation. As a local real estate broker, you're extremely busy right now. This will affect affordable housing. You're requesting to please table this. It is not complete and will erect housing prices. Is there anything you'd like me to add to your comment?
It's just going to adversely affect our entire community. Not just housing prices, but small businesses. I mean, there's so many things that are still, I think, unknown.
I've amended your comment to read as well. This will affect our entire community adversely.
And then can you put in there that I would implore Commissioners Hunthausen and McCormick to table this?
Yes.
Thank you.
Anybody on Zoom? Hand raised?
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right, let's have our next in-person commenter.
Hi, I'm Tom Rolfe, 226 Willowbrook Drive, Helena, candidate for county commissioner. I want to take a minute, just kind of talk a little bit about what seems to be happening out here. I believe that several of you are feeling like this needs to move forward. That you truly believe that you're making a positive impact on our community. And I feel that there's a pretty strong feeling out in the community that there are some mistakes in what's been done. And I'd like to encourage you to consider delaying the implementation of any portion of this that you decide to go forward with, and give a period of time for stakeholders to get more involved, to try and make it more palatable, if that's what your intention is to do. And I think maybe a really good faith indication of wanting to work with community, and I think you really do. I think a good faith effort would be to pretty shortly make an announcement that you've decided to get rid of the 10 acres. And then once you've done that, bring stakeholders together to help finish out the product and make it more palatable to those who have problems. So delay implementation, maybe as much as 6 months, whatever is necessary to get more people feeling like they've had a say in it. Number two, eliminate the 10-acre provision. And number three, bring everybody together. I really believe that everybody is trying to do the right thing. It's just there's different ways of getting about it and getting to it. And I encourage you to take some time to do this. Thank you very much.
Hold it, Mr. Rolfe. Tom, wait. She's gonna read it back.
Okay, excuse me.
you okay, or would you like me to read it?
The 3 points are.
Consider delaying the decision to work with the stakeholders to produce something that will work for everyone. Consider removing the 10-acre min and bring stakeholders to the table to develop a plan that is more palatable. Encourage the commission to take some time to do this.
I think my thought was to delay the implementation. Number 1, to announce as soon as possible an elimination of the 10-acre provision. And number 3, bring stakeholders together to try to make things work better for everybody.
So I put numbers next to your 3 main points.
Okay. I think I got it. You got it there.
Thank you, sir.
All right, anybody have their hands raised?
They do not, Madam Chair.
Okay, all right, next in-person commenter, please.
I wanted to, this is John Heron, HERIN, 2855 Sundown Road. I wanted to wait to try and get myself a little bit more composed because I really am having a hard time feeling good about this whole process and where we're headed. And the fact that oh, by the way, let me do this so that you might speed things up. I summarize.
Thank you, Mr. Heron.
I've summarized it to some degree, but I might deviate from it a little bit. But essentially, this is a discrimination problem, and it's basically a takings, and discrimination is illegal by in and of itself. You just look up the definition of discrimination. Takings, just like we had in the off-site road lawsuits back in 2005 to 2007, wherein the county said that only new people, only new subdividers had to pay 100% of off-site roads. In this case, it's the same takings issues in the zoning plan as that, and that it's the takings from only new people, that being new subdividers, and rewarding, conversely rewarding urban and transitional properties. That is discrimination par none, can't walk away from it. It is written into the law, so it's takings. The mere fact that this thing never got proved for the very basic principles from the get-go is troubling, but the fact that it hasn't stopped and we're still here talking about these same issues when you can't go forward. I don't think that this is legal. It won't pass the muster. So what will happen is if you pass it, an injunction will be filed, and the county attorney's office needs to be looking at this. May I stop right here and just add a caveat? I think that the county should spend $30,000 to $50,000 in the next week, hire two lawyers, independent of the county, and one scientist capable of understanding the facts, and look at all the testimony that has been written so far. And in particular, my 24-page legal challenge, Nico, you hopefully had a chance to read it. And I directly sent that to Leo Gallagher, hoping that the attorney's office would stop this obvious problem that you have no legal basis. So what I see is you've got 3 failures when you go to court. Let's assume that this goes to court. That the county will be wasting a lot of their effort and resources in responding to depositions, interrogatories, and having to be deposed, responding to how they didn't build bias into this whole thing. If you look back at the growth plan, as I've said over and over again, this is fraught with bias. And yet you're using it as your only real Bible. And then I went back and looked at the staff report that was created for transmittal in June to the county, to the planning board. And basically, it is fraught with problems too, because it says really the only solution for rural property is density control. Whereas the urban and rural, they get away with no density controls. Therein lies your problem, and you're actually encouraging growth to move there, when growth is moving there anyway, as I testified last week. So you need to do the homework to prove what our growth trends are from this point going forward, because that's what we're talking about, and not using 2015 assumptions, which are wrong, and then building a whole house of cards on it. And essentially, again, as I characterize it, is a house of cards that holes have been shot all through, cards have been ripped up and thrown away, because we don't even talk about floodplain, we don't talk about water quality. We're down to 3 items: fire, roads, and can't think of the third one right now at the moment. But anyway, we're down to 3 house of cards. And on that whole principle is built on a quicksand, as I alluded to before. The quicksand is the law. The law says, and here, let's go to the legislative intent. In other words, you need to prove that this is for the greater good, and you have not done it. In fact, I haven't seen anything come close to the level that should be done. Now, if this was a logging proposal, simple logging proposal, this is much more obtrusive, and it's much more widespread than a logging proposal. If it was a state program, you would be doing an environmental impact statement and have to prove that that logging project is actually in the greater good. And that is procedurally, technically, environmentally, legally, all those things have to be met. And they have not been met. If one iota of semblance of an effort by the county to rectify and correct what's been stated over and over again, you keep plodding forward and not correcting, or at least making an effort. The reason you haven't answered is because you can't. There is no defense for what you're proposing. It isn't. I haven't seen it. So if you can do it, but the legislative intent, let's go back to what the Montana Code said. Legislative intent, liberal construction. Legislative intent, the legislature finds and declares that the public boards, commissions, in the state exists to aid in the conduct of the people's business. Okay, that's us. You're doing us a favor by coming forward with regulations, and you haven't done the business to basically prove your case. It is in the intent of this part of the actions and deliberations that all public agencies shall conduct openly. The people of the state do not wish to abdicate their sovereignty to the agencies which serve them. That means us. You have not made an effort to do open meeting laws where you are required to prove your case to us, that the takings is warranted, that you can take somebody's future property rights and say that you have to give those up for no compensation and forevermore give those up for the greater good, and then you have no technical basis for proving that. So let's look at water quality. Where is water quality? Yes, there's isolated incidences of water quality. Well, then let's address those through the subdivision regs or whatever. And they are being addressed. Fire. The whole western part of the county, or the Helena Valley planning area, basically won't see very much subdivision development anyway, and that's the areas that are timbered, because they've already been pretty much developed. Most of the western part of the Helena planning area won't see very many new houses, and yet you're saying that they need it for fire protection. Well, the Bird's Eye Road fire basically proved that large tract unmowed property is more dangerous than tightly dense 1 acre tracts or less, where the grass is there, the roads are there to make barriers for fire. So your 10-acre solution is more unsafe than lower density subdivisions. So how can you use fire? Because the western third of the county is pretty much already built on. The grassland areas, the fire danger goes up as you go to 10-acre tracts. So fire is out, right? Unless you can prove me otherwise, prove me wrong, but you have not done the homework to do that, and unless you do that, you can't move forward. So you can't do water quality, because we got a few water quality problems. You haven't proven that that's area-wide, you can blanket all 150 to 500,000 acres of land, and nobody's ever given us the number of what we're really talking about, which is again obscene. And it's unconscionable that I have no data to be able to base any of your decisions. Now, you've given us nothing for where we're at as far as number of acres, number of future acres that could be impacted. How many are less than 10? How many are less than 5? What's that going to be doing to all those people that have non-conforming lots? All those issues have not been addressed. So let's go to the second terms that you're going to have to face in court. These terms are denoting state of mind, and they're in essentially 1-1-202, and those terms are basically general definitions of terms used in code, terms denoting state of mind. So it's essentially, you will be asked, each one of you who is deposed and stuff like that, what is your state of mind? Term corruptly. Okay, I don't want to go into all the definitions of what they say, but here's the words that you will have to be faced. Because I believe your actions can fall into all these categories. Corruptly, knowingly, you're knowingly perpetuating this without giving us the right to know. That's another term that I think I need to throw in here too, is that the county needs, the citizens have a right to know what your action is, how it solves a problem, and you have not done that. You've not defined the problem. You've not proven that this 10-acre restrictions solve a problem. They create more problems than they solve. Malice is basically maliciously going ahead with an intent to hurt somebody. Negligence. This is negligence because you produce non-factual, no scientific information upon which I as a scientist can come back. Conversely, I will show you, I've written close to 60 pages of reasons why you can't do this, and I have gotten zero responses to the facts. In particular, there is the overview of March 2nd. There is the summary, which is 6 pages, basically outlining why you can't do this. There is the summary of comments that I took at the February 26th and February 6th public hearings. But the most damning one that I think is just the technical side of things is that there's basically 15 pages of, hey, technical basis failures for disclosed report. And you haven't responded to it. It was dated February 22nd. And then we have the 24-page legal challenges. So you have administrative challenges that I feel there's a huge amount of failures going on because there isn't really been a disclosure to the public. That's an administrative failure. You have not divulged to the public why we need 10-acre restrictions. Until you do that, you're dead in the water. Technical, that same issue, taking each one of these issues and going point by point, proving how blanket 10-acre restrictions across the whole rural property, the whole, and that to me is the key element here. Yeah, there's spot issues, but you cannot use a blanket restrictions to say you're going to fix something when you can't even define the problems. And the third one is illegal. And I think that's the most important that is missing in all of this. Nobody's seemed to want to go back to. The legislature tells you that you need to run meetings so that people know why you're going to do something, and you haven't done that. If you go back to, I guess it was kind of an interesting foray of science finds that kind actions pay off, which is interesting because here we have science telling us that if you do things that are good, people will feel better. Well, I certainly don't feel good about this, and I think that most of the people, and I do mean to stop here in basic thought. Commissioner Hunthausen, you after last meeting, you met with Mike Fassbender, you said you'd like to work with him, correct? To work on this thing, but then at the end of it, you said, no, I think we need to move forward with this and then fix it later. Well, I'm sorry, but that's not right. It's so broken, seriously, Andy, that this cannot go forward. It's so broken that you need to do exactly what he said, take out the 10-acre restrictions, start over, because it just doesn't make technical, physical, moral, ethical, any sense. So we can't fix it later. We can't wait until either Tom Rolfe or Mike Fassbender get into position, and then we work on trying to amend something that's so broken from the get-go. And I know, Commissioner Cookies, you have a really bad time against rural property, thinking it because you're a rancher and stuff like that. You've got a bias that says, hey, these ranchers need to be protected. And also the existing homeowners somehow have a higher right than new people coming in because they might be out of town, people downers. You said that basically by saying, I think that their view is going to be affected. And then the classic case was the new one where we had a proposed storage unit there on Lake Helena Drive last couple of weeks ago. And you said, oh, and their view is going to be affected. And I worry about that. And because we've got a rent or lease situation, that it circumvents the law, and I would have liked to crush it. And you said all 3 county commissioners are opposed and would vote this down. That's a needed storage facility. It helps a lot of people. It's a business that's needed in that community, and it's appropriate. And the fact that somebody doesn't like to see something next door is something you're going to face over and over again. But that doesn't give them a higher right, which you seem to place such a god-awful high opinion of, or that the fact that the rural property is so valuable, all that dry land property up there, it barely is breaking even for any of those people. And if they have continued droughts, they probably won't be in existence. So the only way that they got out of it is to maybe sell some land once in a while to save their family. Once in a while, okay? You're concluding that. Second part of that is that where you should be promoting protecting rural land, the productive land is down in the bottom where you're trying to force everybody. My family had a 1,000-acre ranch in the valley, and it goes back generations. And it's now full of pivotals that are making a lot of money for hay. And the guy's got beautiful tractors, he had 4 of them and stuff like that, from Flowery Lane right there. Well, what's the point? That's the land that you're gonna say you need to build on. You are rewarding them with your financial setup, the way you're targeting rural property. Whereas you laughed and you criticized Mark Deal that he was telling you real numbers about how hard marginal his upland lands are. Where we should be doing for smart growth is building in the hills and on the grasslands and protecting that high productive agricultural land in the bottoms, not the other way around in your plan, it's just the opposite. Look at traffic. Traffic is easier from the North Hills on the interstate than it is for somebody that lives in the middle of the valley and tries to come in on Montana Avenue. Same case for when I just drove out, I realized that I should know this for living here forever, is that the Priest Pass area, if somebody came in from Priest Pass, that's a 4-lane road. The kids come in, the family comes in, drops their kids off at C.R. Anderson or Kessler School, then they go to C.R. Anderson, then they go to work at the county, okay? If somebody comes in from the valley, they've got a harder time and take longer time to get there, use more gas. So this whole idea, I think what it is it's a bunch of Kool-Aid people have drunk that says smart growth is. And smart growth is attack rural property, push everybody into apartments, living in town because the prices have gotten so expensive that nobody can afford a house. And that's where we're going to. And I don't want to see our next generation, I don't want to see the people that follow me have to live in apartments because that's all they can afford. Because rural property without a lot of the restrictions would be some of the cheaper properties, and that's what you're saying people need to go to. But quite frankly, the growth is, it seems like the younger generation want to live on a postage stamp, live real close to the communities because they've got kids. So if you look at all the growth, and I told you this last week, look at all the 1,000 of homes around East Helena and Helena that are being built. And you're telling us that no, our problems that we saw before the October 2014 DNRC water rights ruling, that whole pattern is now changed. It is too darn hard, both from the road standpoint, because Bird's Eye Road is a state or is a county road. You won't see a lot of growth in east on Bird's Eye Road because of the fair contribution parts. You won't see a lot of growth in the top of the North Hills because it's too expensive to build roads to the county standard and then have to pay your fair share. The circular reasoning used in this document here is that rural roads are bad and that we need to stop rural growth because the rural roads are bad. Well, the rural roads are bad because the county's not doing their part of fixing their roads. They don't have a budget to fix their roads. Surprised to see that Bird's Eye Road finally got approved. But the rural people that live there live in an RID or SID, and they refuse to pay for county standard roads. If you look at the deficient roads, people choose to do that because of economics. So how can the county, it's like the dog chasing the tail, you're saying that the roads are not adequate, and that's your justification, when in fact the county's not helping, the rural people aren't paying for it, and the only people that are paying to improve roads are the new subdividers paying at the highest price that you can imagine, meaning they have to hire an engineer to look at the road, they have to design the road for the improvements, pay into the county their pro rata share of the contributions, which the county then allocates to the whole road and figures out what's the best solution. So the only person that's fixing the roads in rural America, outside of state highways, is the subdivider, and yet you're targeting them for no, we can't have any more of those because the roads are deficient. Quite frankly, I think our roads are pretty darn good. If you look at the interstate, if you look at the Highway 12, if you look at York Road, I think that's one where I've already commented twice that the county needs to take a look at the safety issues that they're ignoring. And I would like to ask each one of the commissioners, each one of the staff members, how many of you make calls in the last 2 months to make sure that happens and gets fixed? I doubt if I could see any progress. You can see that I'm very frustrated, I'm very mad at you guys wasting our time going over the same stuff when you cannot win in court. There is absolutely no way that you're going to win because you've already proven the loss in court when we went to court over the offsite roads. The blueprint's there. Takings, you can't target. You can't target one class of citizens and reward another. That's it. It's done. It's already proven. We've already won those cases. I was involved in 5 of them. And I had 2 of them were involved in zoning where the county came in and actually lied and fabricated a report saying that the water quality value of parts per billion pharmaceuticals or the sky is falling and the reason we need to adopt interim zoning and then emergency zoning. And guess what? It was all a lie, and your own staff, James Swearick, came out 9 months later and proved that the county had lied and forced a staff member to create a fabricated report. So if you wanted to go to court, we could prove that you've got a track record of forcing offsite roads, you've got a track record of illegally adopting emergency zoning and stuff by a fabricated report, threatening a staff member's position. And now you come out with this, the same issue of smart growth. We're gonna know better than you, and you need to pony up and just let us do what we're gonna do, does not work. And I think in court, you're gonna have this history come up. The history is bad. It will not help you. Oh, I'm so apologize. I thought I shut this thing off. Sorry. In fact, I meant to leave the car. A pattern of abuse, a pattern of targeting rural property only, a pattern that, to my mind, those people that own land should be in a class action lawsuit with the county over, I would say, roads and the fire protection. the fact that you're forcing everybody to hook up to system or build systems that you, I've already submitted I had a talk with Peter Toniana and Roger Blatz in December of 2018, asking that the county get rid of some of the restrictive regulations on fire protection, and yet you have not done one thing to fix that problem. And a list of 5 things that I think that I've already stood up a month ago and asked the county commissioners to look at. And in fact, the county commissioners voted in May when they were looking at minor changes to subdivision regs to force the staff to look at changes to the subdivision regs by fall of 2019. And your staff did nothing but come out with this. And Peter Taniano says, well, I've been too busy doing that. So we want to continue the abuse. We want to continue to target rural property with abusive subdivision regs, but we won't fix that. We'll add another layer of abuse on top of it. I call it abuse because you have wasted 9 months of my time again. You've wasted all these people, and how many people have testified against you, and you still want to, sorry, Andy, but still want to go ahead and fix it later? No, all it's gonna do is you're gonna get sued. So the suit would be probably, and I'm not a lawyer, I can't tell you this, but it would be they'll get an injunction, they'll go to court, this thing will get delayed till next year, we'll have a new county commissioner and staff, and hopefully you guys will go, oops, we got sued, now what we do? And you'll be back working to fix this issue that there's no way to fix unless you start from ground zero and start with removing bias, start by removing targeting of rural property for controls, unless you have a very specific reason to do so. And to date, you have produced 0. So if I were to stand in front of the court and try and present my kind of case, and then you guys had your staff come forward and try and present your side of the case, who's going to win? I could take you on any one of the 5 concern issues. I can take you on one of the, I'm not a lawyer, but I can sure read the law. That's what I basically grew up doing in the state. I was like, I looked at the rules, the regulations, and I did it. So how can you even think about going forward? I implore you to spend the 30 to 50,000 to go out and get a scientist and get 2 attorneys. And the reason I say 2 is that you can always have, disagreements. But I don't think that anything that I've submitted or anybody else has submitted proves your case, but conversely, it makes you on the defensive to the point where you can't win in court. And if you can't win in court, why are you going to go ahead? So I'll leave it there. I know it's way too hard to read it. I won't bother. I will, hopefully the video record will be the real thing that when we go to court, all this stuff has been recorded. All the bias that I see built into all the decisions by the county for the last 16 years will be part of the record. And it already is. I've seen it. I watched the abuse continue and continue. It needs to stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perrin. Let the record show that Commissioner McCormick came in at 1:45.
Madam Chair, we do have a member on Zoom who would like to speak.
Great. Okay, let's hear from him.
George, you can make your comment.
Madam Chair, this is George Harris. I'm the CEO to the Helena Association of Realtors. Sorry I couldn't be there in person today. I appreciate the opportunity to comment. I'd like to commend those that have appealed for a opportunity to slow down and to involve stakeholders in this monumental decision. I'd like to reiterate the key points which we have made from the Helena Association of Realtors. The Helena Association of Realtors, representing some 355 realtors and some other 40 or 50 ancillary businesses, is a major portion of the business community in this area. As such, our board of directors has stated on record our opposition. But where do we go from here? We would like to support the notion to delay this decision, to table it, if you will, and to go back to the comments from Chairman Thomas from the Joint City and County Planning Board, where he succinctly and eloquently presented his position that we should get professional consultants in who are unbiased, to bring folks in, to bring the stakeholders together, that we may be able to come to a palatable solution in an amicable manner. We appreciate the hard work that's been done by your staff, who I find to be very congenial and professional individuals. We would ask you to consider the comments which we have seriously made. One, we really and sincerely believe, and it's our position, that the draft zoning records are so restrictive that Helena won't be able to build enough housing for the future growth that's been identified in the plans, affordable to the average individuals coming into our community. We do believe that it's bypassing the hard work of the planning for Ahead for Growth. If we could slow it down, we're willing to be a partner, a stakeholder in that process. We also believe that the draft zoning regulations will create uncertainty, regulatory uncertainty to the landowners, the developers, and the county. And it's our position that the draft zoning regulations definitely negatively impact private property rights, as we've heard almost 100%, 95% opposition to the proposal. And we also recognize that the current subdivision regulations are designed to mitigate the impact of developing to protect the public. All of these issues need to be vetted out more thoroughly with independent consultants and those stakeholders having a detailed input as to the process. We concur with the comments that have been suggested that we delay this action, and two, that we eliminate the 10-acre restriction. We are consistently opposed to that position. And three, that we can get together with common stakeholders such as HBIA, the Helena Building Industry Association, and other stakeholders, that we may come together as a community in a peaceful, amicable position, in a positive manner, to move this forward that's palatable to the landowners, to the business community, and to the public of our county. I wish to thank all those who have worked so hard. Our association members have attended all the meetings, most of the meetings, and our Government Affairs Committee, and we're committed to helping to move forward. But we do request that you delay, that you table this, that you bring in the professional consultants that are unbiased, and that we're able to eliminate the 10 acres, and that we feel that we can move forward in a positive manner. I wish to thank you for this time, and that concludes my comments. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the commission.
Okay, Mr. Harris, hold up, because we're going to have Ms. Chronic read your comments back, okay?
Okay.
Stand by. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for your comment.
Thank you.
Be just a second here. I apologize, I'm just having a hard time getting all the comment on the screen. Have that you are the CEO of the Helen Association of Realtors. Helen Association of Realtors has many members that are in opposition. You would like to support the notion to delay this decision, go back to the comments of Chairman Thomas and support his comments to table this and have consultants who are unbiased do a study. Believe that the draft zoning regulations are too restrictive to build affordable housing. That HAR is willing to be a stakeholder in the process if we slow down and bring this back to the table. Current subdivision regulations are designed to address the key issues. You concur with the comments that we, 1, delay this action, 2, eliminate the 10-acre minimums, 3, get together with stakeholders like HBIA in a peaceful and amicable manner to develop a plan that will work for everyone. I have that HAR is committed to helping it move forward, but delay and bring in professional unbiased consultants to do a study. And then unfortunately, I wasn't able to get the rest of what you were saying.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think a couple of the key points that I mentioned was that the draft zoning regulations does in fact negatively impact the property owner's rights. And that is a concern to the association. And also that the regulations are designed to mitigate the impacts of development to protect the public. That's the current subdivision regulations. I want to be clear there that the current subdivision regulations are designed to mitigate the impacts of development to protect the public. With that, I think that that pretty well covers my comments. And also, our official statement is already on the record, as I've previously testified. Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the commission and the public.
Mr. Harris, would you like to hear Ms. Cronick's amended report of your comments?
Yes, please.
Mr. Harris, what I've added to your comments is draft zoning does impact homeowner rights negatively, and that your official statement is on record. Excuse me.
Yes, that's adequate. Thank you, Madam Chair, and your staff. We appreciate your hard work.
Thank you very much, Mr. Harris. As long as we're doing Zoom calls, do we have anybody else with the hand raised?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Okay, we'll revert now, and I'm going to assume that there's nobody on the phone. Okay, so we can go ahead and resume with in-person comments.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, my name is Mike Hughes. I reside at 119 West 13th Street. Greg, Peter, Roger, Susan, Andy, Jim. We're not here to just say no. I want you guys to know that. There's been a lot of no for hours and hours. And I want you to know that the building industry isn't here to just say no. We're here to try to find a serious solution and some common sense to what we're trying to accomplish here. And I just want you to know that in my opening statement here. It's just you guys are getting pounded with no, but I want you to know that we are open to some serious dialogue and some serious potential with what we're talking about. But I do want to echo what Mr. Nistler said is, you know, when it takes 3 years to do a subdivision. And we're cramming this thing in, I think, a little bit too accelerated. In a current form, as this zoning is being proposed, this is an all-out attack on affordable housing. And affordable housing is a big deal for you guys, I know it is. We talk about it all the time. We live in a government town with government wages. You guys know, you work for the county, right? You're a county employee? I'm betting you're not making $300,000 a year being a government employee. We are tasked as home builders to be able to provide affordable housing for people that are in the workforce. Here in Helena. We aren't Bozeman, we're Helena. I'm gonna give you a couple statistics. I like facts, I like statistics. In 1995, my homes, which I sold primarily to state and county workers, were priced at $69,000. That was 1995. In 2000, again, selling most of my homes to state and county employees, those home prices in 2000 were $85,000. In 2010, again, I don't know, 20, 30 government workers, workforce people, those prices were now at 189,000. Today, and these are facts, folks, today, back to John, today in Jerry's subdivision, we are struggling, we are making less margin, and we are struggling to provide a first-time home for under $300,000. This acceleration is out of control. And this zoning proposal is an all-out attack on that. We don't really realize that, guys, but it is. I mean, subconsciously, that's what's gonna happen. I mean, it's gonna create some serious price problems. And we're gonna, our kids, our grandkids, we as builders, developers, we want our kids to go to college and come back and live there. But they gotta be able to work and afford their housing. And we beat this, you know, two words that just, I get tired of listening to: sustainability and affordable housing, blah, blah, blah. But let's really talk about the affordable factor on a government, state government, county or federal worker. The feds, they make a little bit, they're a little better, but in the big picture of things, guys, this plan in its current state is going to put a serious level of pressure on the average working folks on a dual income to be able to afford a home here in Helena. And I just can't emphasize that enough. $300,000. I testified at the state legislature a few years ago, and I ran this same scenario out. I actually took it back. I've been building homes for 47 years. I'm that old, believe it or not. And through that 47 years, there were some of the folks that were sitting on a panel, kind of like you, Andy, maybe, maybe Jim, you. And I said, you know, you might have grandkids, maybe, 5, 6 years old. They're going to be eligible for enter the workforce or enter the potential housing market in 18 years, 19 years. And so I took that scale, and this was a few years ago, and I just ran it simple scale out, all economics, all numbers. And you guys are going to be driving around with your grandkids and their spouse, looking at their first new home with their realtor at about $500,000. Now, I can tell you that our wages aren't increasing like this. You guys aren't getting paid more at this accelerated rate. And yet we as home builders in our industry, I'm not kidding you guys when I tell you we are making less money, less percentage at $300,000 than we were at $89,000. And that is no joke. And it's getting tougher and tougher and tougher. And one of the things that, and and this is directed, Peter, at you and some of the things that are up on the board there, but I gotta tell you, when you tell a property owner that you know what's appropriate for their property, it isn't going to get a positive response. It just isn't. People go to work, they work their butts off, they make payments to own that property and to have government tell them, you know what, we know what's appropriate for you. I think a better approach to this, guys, would be for you as our county leaders to ask the homeowners, back this thing up and take it from a different perspective and say, what do you think, Mr. or Mrs. Jones or whatever? What do you think is appropriate use for your property? You're kind of out in this area, what's your use of your, what's the most appropriate use for your property? And open that dialogue up that way. Now you're gonna have a property owner that's gonna go, well, you know, I'm thinking about this, and that gives you the opportunity, and the planner's an opportunity to say, well, our position is this or this or this because of this, this, and this. But what it does is it opens up the property owner's perspective that maybe he's missing something on what might be an appropriate use. But by God, to be told, I know what the most appropriate use of your property is, just doesn't sit well with people. Just doesn't, and that's one of the reasons I think you have so many people upset. And yes, you know, this is a tough job you guys got. You know, you try to, just like right now, look at this room, you know, just like Mr. Nestor said, where the hell is everybody? Well, you know what, we got jobs. They're trying to make their house payments. You guys don't, you get a check whether you're sitting here or not. And I don't mean that derogatory, I'm just saying, in the private sector, it's tough. Get these people to a meeting, they've got kids 6 o'clock at night, out at Dim Darcy or somewhere. It's a doggone tough job. I understand that. But somehow we've got to be able to get the property owners to understand that hopefully you'd be willing to have this kind of a dialogue with them if they'd be willing to talk about it and be able to come to some meeting of the minds on it. And I really hope that you think about that human approach to what folks are being told right now, being pushed on them. Maybe we call it the top down. That's just a terminology. But the other thing I'd like to just say is, you know, when you look at areas, and I've seen many areas of growth, and it is short-sighted for all of us in this room to seriously not see in 25 years that from the base of the North Hills to just east of Lake Helena Drive to the Scratch Gravel Hill base to the north end of the city limits is the most appropriate area for growth. It's gonna happen, that's what's been gonna happen. And towards East Helena area, which incorporates what I just talked about. And so this 10-acre minimum and trying to force this rural thing when we know in the big picture of things, you guys as leaders of the county need to get out in front of this. That's how it's gonna grow. If we stifle that opportunity with this particular plan, I am dead serious, guys. We're gonna have a line of cars. We already have a line of cars. I don't know if you guys have seen the line of cars coming from Townsend at 7:35 in the morning. Well, it's as far as you can see, and that is only gonna get worse because we're gonna drive growth out of the county. There's a saying in the national building industry that says they will drive to qualify. They will drive to qualify. That's what's going to happen. That's what happens in LA and those areas that get out of control. These people are so hungry to have home ownership that by God, we will continue to push them, and they will continue to drive and buy. And that's what's going to happen. So we need to think about that scenario. It's a serious realism in housing in general, and it's been that way for decades in the United States. folks are gonna drive as far as they can to be able to afford that house. And it's gonna get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper the farther you go. And that's just the way it's been in America for a long, long time. And that's where we get the sprawl. And so I just hope that you'd really take to heart the fact that we're not here just to no, 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 no. Let's seriously take some time, and we need time because we're private sector. We can't devote day in and day out to this stuff. I'm losing money being here. I got a guy out there that I actually, let me rephrase that. I had to send my guy home today because I'm here. So I've got an employee that isn't making any money, that needs to be able to get a paycheck full every week, and I have to send him home because I'm here. So what I'm saying is we need time as a private sector for our involvement. We just can't all dive in right now and be at the beck and call of this push. And so I hope that you guys will understand this part of what we're experiencing and the frustration on our side. Lastly, this overwhelming opposition, guys, I'm telling you, this goes to Roger, Peter, Greg, all you guys and the commissioners. This overwhelming opposition is fueling a total lack of trust in our county leadership and their staff. That's what it's doing. It's like throwing gasoline on the fire. You think right now that you guys are Mr. Populars out there? It's not. Everybody's frustrated, angry. It's crazy. And they are really, really fit to be tied. And so I would hope that you guys come together to, one, earn our trust. Two, let's seriously get in this conversation. Let's seriously talk about your growth area. I know, Andy, you live in the North Hills, I think. I don't know, but as I recall. And I mean, nobody likes to see, you know, sprawl and spots and this and that, but at the end of the day, that's what it's gonna be. That's what Helena's gonna look like in 25 years. I mean, you come over that North Hill at night right now, you guys know what that looks like driving from Great Falls at nighttime. And man, it's lights, and then we get it kind of dies out a little bit where the flood area is in the center, and then the lights again. That's what our area looks like, and it's just gonna continue to look like that. But if we take this position and we drive this growth to Broadwater and Jefferson, and again, people are gonna drive to qualify. And that's just the nature of it. I hope that we can sit down. I hope you guys take this conversation seriously instead of just no, no, no from all of us, and say, hey, let's seriously take some time. This is a big deal, guys. This is a giant, giant deal that we're playing with here. And we recognize that. And we're not totally opposed at all. There needs to be some drill down on this subject matter and really try to get it figured out. And again, starting with the folks. Mr. Jones, Jim, what would you like? What do you think is most appropriate for your acreage, sir? What do you think you'd like to be doing with that? Well, why don't you take a look at a couple of our ideas, and we can kind of sit down and talk about that. That's the approach that I hope that you folks will take. Thanks for your time. I don't need to hear it back. I'm good.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Okay, who else would like this? Well, do we have anybody on Zoom?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Okay, go ahead, then we'll get our next in-person comment. Mr. Howland.
Madam Chair, members of the commission and staff. My name is Jerry Hamlin and I reside at 1625 University Street here in Helena. I agree with the other speakers who have come up today, and the speakers who have spoken on this issue in the past. I'm going to do my best today to stick with a summary of what I think might be able to be done. And I agree with Mike Hughes. I would like to see us go away from this meeting today with a possible win-win for both. I do think there are some basic elements in the zoning program that are okay, and we can live with it. I do think there are some elements that are not okay, and we can't live with them. But my overall thing is when I'm done today and I leave this podium, I am going to leave you with a possible idea so that we can both go away and recognize all of the time you guys have put into it, all of the time the planning staff has put into it, and all the time those of us who have opposed this plan from the very get-go can get something for all the time we put in. I think we beat it to death on why it's not good in its present state. So I don't need to go into any of those reasons again. You've heard them all, and you have copies of them. Mike Hughes ended his statement by saying, the affordability issue is a big deal. I'm going to take that one step further, and I'm going to say it's not only the affordability that's a big issue. The COVID is a big issue. I look at everybody around here wearing these masks. We all think it's a big deal. And I'm telling you, out there in Mr. Free Enterprise, USA, there are restaurateurs that are going broke because the COVID stops their operation. There are all kinds of businesses going broke because of the COVID. This has been a horrible year for the United States economy all year long. And what are we doing? We're coming along and we're going to increase that problem by making land unaffordable. There must be a better way. And I think there is. One of the things that I heard from everybody that's spoken so far, but I'm going to tell you there are some people who are against this plan that are not in this room, and I have talked to personally. These are bankers, financial people, appraisers, surveyors, and engineers. And why aren't they here? They aren't here because they're afraid of repercussions on their businesses. It takes some salt to be able to stand up here and go against what the commission is putting forth. It takes some risk about retaliation that could happen if you get up here and go against policy. And some of those people are afraid to get up here and say what they believe because of retaliation, either from the commission, the staff, the city, or the county, or the state, or the federal government. We do not live in a society where that should be happening. But I'm telling you, I have seen it in my own case, and I've seen it in other cases. So you don't hear from bankers, surveyors, engineers, appraisers. Those people are all against this. And I'm not going to say everyone 100%. Everyone I have talked to opposes this. So I just want you to be aware of that fact. Now, it was mentioned earlier on by one of the speakers that there are now 500 signatures in opposition to this. How many signatures do you have that are in favor? Aren't we having these public hearings so that we, the public, can give you an idea of what we think of this proposal? I assume you are listening to everything that we're saying, and you will take that into consideration when you eventually decide what you're going to do with this proposal. And there is no way that you could possibly think this is a good idea to bring forward with this kind of opposition and very little, if any, support. So I implore you to think about what you've heard over these last testimony days. Now I'm going to try to summarize and come up with what I am going to stick my neck out and say might be a possible way forward. I want it to be a win-win. And I know everybody loves that term because it sounds so good. I really want you to be able to win on your side because there's been a lot of effort put into this. I don't think the effort has been deep enough or long enough. I think it's been rushed, but let me tell you, there is no doubt in my mind, there have been thousands of hours put in on both sides. It would be a shame for us to lose all of that work and start from scratch. When I started testifying against this, that was my idea. This plan needs to be scrapped. And I think back, I have been doing a lot of thinking. I spent all weekend thinking about what could happen. And I became aware of the fact that I heard Mike Fossbender, I heard Mike Hughes, and I heard Kim Smith's testimony. They all had some ideas that I had thought of and looked at it from some kind of a compromise viewpoint, a win-win situation. And I happened to try to think of a way where I could amalgamate all of those opinions into something that might be good for you and good for us. So here is my proposal. I have talked about it with every single stakeholder here, except the bankers and the engineers and the appraisers. But I know Tim Moore, who is one of the most well-recognized appraisers here in town, would be in substantial agreement with what I'm about to say. I have talked extensively to realtors. I serve on both the HAR, Governmental Affairs Committee, and the HBIA, Governmental Affairs Committee. I have talked to the principal players there. They seem to think this might be a good step forward. So am I standing here saying that what I'm about to say will be automatically accepted? No. What I am saying is I've tested the water, and the water was pretty warm. And I think we have a shot at it if we can have the right start. So here's a plan. Win-win. First of all, we have to replace, I didn't say just get rid of it. I said replace the 10-acre minimum with the State Department of Health, the State Department of Environmental Quality, and the State Department of Natural Resources and Conservation minimum acreage sizes. What are those? The State Department of Health and Department of Environmental Quality say if you have an acre of land, you can put a well and a septic tank on it. If they accept that, and they have hired professional engineers to review the data on a case-by-case basis, which already happens without this zoning, why does the county want to take that responsibility on itself and change what the state already accepts? That makes no sense. Think about it. From the county liability viewpoint, do any of you commissioners or staff have the expertise the schooling or the knowledge to tell somebody if the water's okay there and if the sewer is? No, you do not, nor should you be looking at that. You should delegate that to the state, who hires people who have engineering degrees to determine that. Don't take that liability on. When I went to the planning board meetings, I heard 2 full sessions of planning board members saying, well, we've got to stop that. You know, that's not enough water. They don't have a clue. And they shouldn't have a clue, and they shouldn't have spent hours debating on whether a subdivision should be approved or not. Send it to the people who are qualified and tasked with that responsibility. Don't you guys try to do that. The planning board shouldn't try to do that. Those agencies have been put there to protect public health and safety. So let's get out of the minimum acreage business and let's put it to the people who are tasked with that responsibility. So, step 1, amend this document to take out the 10-acre minimum size and state we would like the minimum acreage size in the rural areas to be exactly that which is accepted by the state of Montana, DNRC and DEQ. That's 1. Now, what does that do? That gets rid of 95% of the opposition that you've been hearing. It's not going to be 100%. People want more. Everybody I talked to said, yeah, but how about this, how about this, how about this? And I said, let's take it 1 step at a time. There are some how about and can we change besides that. But that is the major stumbling block. You take that out and you go back to the state, nobody can criticize you for saying that should be a state responsibility. We shouldn't have that liability. We don't have the expertise. So let's change it to what's already in the law by the state. That sounds logical to me. Second, I heard Mike Hughes stand up here last week, and I heard Tim Smith stand up here last week, and they said we can live with the urban and the transitional density requirements as written. You remember hearing that? They both said that last week. I hadn't really thought about the urban and the transitional districts and the density requirements that are in this existing zoning proposal. So guess what? Let's keep it just like it is. Let's not change this. So the win-win is you would be able to say, yes, most of our zoning proposal was acceptable. And we would be able to say, yes, we finally got the 10-acre minimum removed. We win, you win. I think that would be a good compromise, but I'm not quite done. Then, the other thing I heard Mike Fossbender say last week was, why don't we reinstitute the Development Standards Working Group? Excellent idea. That Development Standards Working Group was made up of builders, realtors, developers, and that's the body that should be making these decisions. And I think their recommendation would be invaluable to this commission. So, 2 things: get rid of the 10 acres and substitute state requirements. Keep the zoning the way you've got it for the urban and transitional areas, and appoint the Development Standards Committee to review the other items. Now, you've heard them. They're small in my mind compared to what these 2 are. One of them was Mike McGee from the Home Builders would like to know, can we take a look at the home use occupations and make it better so that it might fit us? That's an auxiliary issue to me. Now, to them, it's important. And I'm a builder and I'm a realtor and it's important to me. But it's nowhere near as important as the zoning in the urban and transitional zones and the 10-acre minimum. That's the breaking point. I'm telling you guys, get the 10 acres and reduce it to what the state requires. And what's wrong with that? That seems like a very good solution to me. So that's my plan. Get rid of the 10 acres, substitute state requirements, leave the zoning in the urban and transitional areas exactly like it is, and appoint a commission to take care of the nitpicky, smaller things. And I don't care what kind of a time frame you put on it. We certainly don't have to make this a decision that has to be fully made tomorrow. We've been 9 months on it now. What's wrong with another few months for crying out loud? This is a major thing. But what I would like to see you do, when it comes October 6th or whenever you're going to make this final decision, is to at least say, we would like to propose, one of you, I hope, will say, I would like to propose an amendment to the zoning and take the 10-acre minimum out and substitute for the state minimum requirements. And I would like to see a development working standard committee appointed. And Mike Fossbender has already agreed that he would help. He participated last time. He would be an excellent chair, and he has already volunteered. So that's my proposal. I hope it's a win-win, and I really appreciate the time everybody's taken to get here. You have heard the public input. This could go on for another 5 months, and it's not going to change. The public is adamantly opposed unless we get an amendment. Thank you very much for your participation.
Okay, Jerry, would you like us to read your stuff back for you?
Nope, I'm going to say she got it. If she didn't, I'll come and tell you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hammond. Okay, it is 25 minutes to 3, and remember that we're going to be taking a break at 3 o'clock. And do we have anybody who wants to testify by Zoom?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Karen. All right, our next in-person commenter, please. Next in-person commenter.
Madam Chair, members of the board, staff, Mike Fossbender, 3930 Bowie Boulevard. Sorry I'm late, I was home with a sick kid. So I'm not sure how much Jerry said, but so we've been working the last 4 or 5 days to reach out and contact the stakeholders to see if they would buy into recreating that development standards working group and try and work on this. At this point, I think there's basically 2 options. If it gets approved, I think there's been several who have made it clear they're going to take this to court. And if it goes to court, nobody wins. You may prevail in the end, the county may, the landowners may. Either way, it's going to cost a lot of money and it's going to create more delays. So I think if we could get that group back together, we could work on this and get a proposal that would be acceptable to everyone involved. And it would be something that could be approved and put into effect way sooner than this could ever work its way through the courts. I have gotten preliminary commitment. They haven't taken formal votes, but HBIA said they would be on board. HAR said they would be on board. The surveyors are, the ag landowners, they have all committed to, if we can table this in order to create a little more time, let everybody come to the table and work on it, that we could get something that really was a good long-range plan, which is what we need. Unfortunately, you guys are having to deal with failure to plan the last lots and lots of commissions. I mean, all you have to do is look around hell and look where the sewage treatment plant is. There's a prime example of failure to plan look long range. So I think we could create this group. We could create a long-range plan, and it would be keep it out of the courts, and we could get everybody on board. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Did you want to have us read that back to you? Thank you, Mr. Foster. Okay, we have 21 more minutes before our break. Who else would like to speak to us? Anybody on Zoom?
No, ma'am.
Anybody else who's here with us who wants to speak?
Can I speak again?
Sure thing. And you'll have to state your name for the record again.
Okay, that's fine.
I know I'm not spelling that right.
I'll spell it for you too. I'm Jonna Davis, Jahna. Davis.
Oh, James Davis.
Okay, thank you for the second opportunity to speak. I was not exactly prepared when I came up the first time. But in addition to what I said earlier, one of the things, a couple of points I would like to make is we pride ourselves on trying, just like Mike Hughes stated earlier, on trying to provide affordable housing for the Helena community. My dad, which I talk about a lot, built our first house when I was 3 in 1984. It was on a half-acre lot on the west side up by Kessler School. My next door neighbor was Commissioner McCormick. Your kids grew up with me. What you were able to provide for your family, what my parents were able to provide for my brother and I, and what I am currently able to provide for my children is a half-acre to 2-acre lots where we can raise our children in an affordable home and dedicate the time that we need to raise them the way we want to raise them. By instituting a 10-acre zoning restriction, you're denying my kids or the younger generation exactly what you were able to provide for your families. Like Mike Hughes stated earlier, we work so hard to bring affordable housing to this community. It is nearly impossible to give people the ability to build a home and raise their children or their grandchildren. To tell your son and daughter, sorry kids, you have to live in a townhouse or raise your kids in an apartment without a backyard, because you can't afford a 10-acre piece of property. And if you can afford to buy it, can you afford to maintain it? Most can't, and most won't. Do you know what it takes to maintain 10 acres? Most of you people in here don't, because very few of you actually live on 10 acres or more. Please don't do this to us. Please don't do this to our children. Do not do this to the people who all they ever wanted was to own their own home. A 10-acre minimum zoning restriction is ludicrous and needs to be removed. Please do not take away the American dream of home ownership. Thank you, commissioners. Now I have to get out of here because my daughter has a volleyball game. Thanks very much.
Okay, and Ms. Davis, before you leave, so you're good with what's up there? Okay. All right, who else would like to speak to us before our 3 o'clock break?
John Heron again. I'm in full support with Jerry and Mike Fassbender were talking about, is putting this on a table and putting it till next year, getting science underneath this whole thing, and then build it from the ground up. That's what we've been asking for all along. This 10-acre tract has to go. But in addition, I don't think that all the other restrictions, that are built into the 129 pages of documents are acceptable either. I haven't had a chance to totally digest it all because I've been so focused on a 10-acre issue that, quite frankly, I don't know where there's other things. But I know for a fact, if you look back, the one development right per parcel issue was incorporated by the county to basically slow anybody from having a home business, which is, again, it's restricts growth. It really restricts the use of land beyond just a normal house. You can't have a rental on the same parcel of land. You can't have a business. You can't have a shop. You can't run a business and have your employees come over if you have more than two. Those type of restrictions really don't help our community work. Really what you want to be doing is encouraging home-based businesses because that reduces trips. It makes more efficiency. It builds businesses. It allows them to grow. It allows a person to have a rental on their property and not be restricted. And to correct a wrong that was stated in this whole thing about the rent lease issues that was raised back in that Lake Helena RD or storage unit, is that Commissioner Goodgeese and Andy Hunthausen said that the reason that was implemented was because of the oil boom in eastern Montana. When in fact, a good part of the reason that went through both houses of the legislature and was passed by the governor is because of the restrictive regulations of the one development right per parcel that Lewis and Clark County basically strangled anybody from having a little bit of extra income on the side. So that, to me, is almost as restrictive or as important as the 10-acre restrictions. And so I would add to the fact that I hope Jerry and his group would also support that we don't want to strangle the use on a rural property any more than we're going to strangle the use on any other property, or again, it will end up in court. Because basically you can't target one part of the community without justification. So, and I think, again, we want to look at a community that works. We want to solve problems like roads. We want to solve problems of wastewater treatment and centralized sewer. Derek Brown, when he was county commissioner, the opportunity was to make the police academy a center point because they had spent about $1 million in creating the sewer system for the academy. That he said, well, that's a low plain in the valley. Let's go ahead and connect up and make a backbone of that down Sierra Road. And Commissioner Murray and whoever else was on at the time, I guess it was probably Andy, said no. And that's the kind of planning that you're pointing to we need, and yet the county doesn't seem to be making an effort to get there. So back to the $30,000 to $40,000, $50,000 I'm asking the county to do in the short term. And I guess if this gets tabled, and if you guys see the light, maybe that expands to 100,000. I don't know what the bill would be to come in and bring in some real planners and real scientists to make some really good planning. But that plan should be something that actually allows us to fix problems and to look long-term, to look 15 years and how to solve the issues of wastewater, water supply. I'll just leave it at that. The other thing is I was involved in that development standards working group for almost a year, back in 2005, 2006, when the county walked out 4 months into that process, and the whole thing fell apart because we had no county support. And I interpreted it as the reason they walked out is because they couldn't control the agenda. When in fact, we were making huge progress. We were making a Dick tweet, and a lot of the people said, well, let's build in some design standards and spacing and trees and all that kind of stuff into our plan. And we had all that. If you go back, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel, a lot of that stuff is already written down. Hopefully somebody was taking notes and keeping track of it. But that is the way you build planning. That's what you do. You build that all these people have a lot of smarts on how they build and can make successful housing for everybody, keep the prices down, and not overly restrict growth in the future with arbitrary and capricious and takings issues that just end us in court. Therein lies the problem that we started from the beginning, is this was all county planning staff at the directors of the county commissioners. Let's target and slow rural growth because it's out of control and we don't want it. That's my opinion. And if you can prove me otherwise, I'd like to see it. But so what did they do? They came up with 129 pages. And I believe that probably at least 60 of that would be an objection to a lot of people in a way that we could make a community better. So I wouldn't feel good at just saying we need to drop the 10 acres. We need to look at all of it and make sure that we're not restricting, in particularly the rental lease thing. Maybe you could add something to your county regulations that adds something to it. I don't know what that would be, but it surely can't be somebody doesn't want to look at it because that's not appropriate reason. It's not in the law. It's not, I don't know how you incorporate it. You need to have facts. You need to have science under behind you. And you need to have a law. And that's period. Let's just go back to square one. If you don't have those elements in it, it's not a workable plan. Thank you. I defer to.
Okay, we have 10 minutes. Do you have anybody with their hand raised?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, as advertised, we will take our break at 3 o'clock. So we'll have anybody else who wants to speak to us? And if not, we will stand at ease, but then we'll take a break. Anybody else who wants to speak to us? Now it's good time. We're gonna take a break for 15 minutes. We'll Okay, we're gonna reconvene. It is now 3:15. I wanna remind everyone that public testimony will end promptly at 4:15 because we have some motions that we are gonna need to make and some housekeeping things in order to conclude the meeting. So we'll put the gavel down and close oral comments at 4:15, but I want to remind everybody that we will be accepting written comment until noon. I believe it's Wednesday, September 30th. Is that correct, Peter? I'm getting a nod. So, okay, so anything else that you want to add in writing after 4:15 today will be accepted until noon on Wednesday, September 30th. Okay, we will resume now. First of all, let's change it up a little bit. Do we have anybody with their hand raised?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Okay, I guess we're not going to be changing it up so much. So who else would like to speak to us in person? Anybody else would like to speak to us in person? So Karen, if you see somebody with their hands raised, would you just alert me? We'll call them.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner McCormick will be leaving us at 4 o'clock today due to an unavoidable conflict. And so, but two members of the commission, Commissioners Hunthausen and DC, will be here for the balance of the meeting. So if you have anything that you want to say that would include Commissioner McCormick, probably better say it before 4 o'clock. Thank you. Mr. Hamlin.
Madam Chair, members of the commission and staff, I just have a quick question. Is there anything on your agenda today at 4:15 that we would need to stay for? Is there anything related to the zoning that will take place after 4:15?
Yes, sir, Mr. Hamlin. We'll be taking a motion, and I can read that to you now, if you like.
Okay. I don't have that. Was it out there on?
No, because this motion has not yet been presented, but I'm going to read it to you anyway, just so you know. Okay? So there will be a motion to close the oral comment as we've discussed, and to continue accept written comment till noon on September 30th, 2020, okay, as we have discussed multiple times. And that we will include in our record for review the proceedings of the Consolidated City and County Planning Board and all written and oral comments provided to the Planning Board, the Planning Board's deliberations and recommendations, and all of the recordings of their meetings.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, is that for just the zoning issue or was it on another subdivision?
No, it's only zoning. Okay, and then the last part of the motion will be, I further move to continue the meeting until Tuesday, October 6th, 2020 at 9 o'clock, right back here in this room.
So there will be no action taken?
Oh, no, sir. Just, the only thing is, Jerry, we're gonna move everything that happened from the planning and zoning, county planning board, and all the oral comments to the planning board, and the deliberations and the recommendations and all the recordings of their meetings.
Okay, just one further question. Has this board reviewed any of the planning board comments yet?
Yes.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, yeah, so that's what's on tap, Jerry. For those people who are watching on Zoom, the in-person participants have left the meeting. And so we are sitting here and we await any comments that come from Zoom. We will continue to hold our meeting open in case anybody from the public wants to come and speak to us in person, because we are going to follow our notice meeting and our schedule as per required by statute and custom. But anyone on Zoom is certainly more than welcome to comment.
Madam Chair, Max Melton would like to make a comment.
Please proceed, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. This is Maxwell Milton, 111 Alfalfa Road in Helena. I called in Wednesday night, and I've been listening again today. Boy, I'm not sure where to go with this. I totally appreciate, well, I have to say I'm a little confused by some of the comments from the building association members and the realtors about, I just looked at the realtors' little video on their website about whether or not zoning in general increases or decreases property values. It seems that where you get good building standards and you create desirability for the landowner, values do go up. Now, it makes it, there's the whole affordability issue. On the affordability issue, I'm a little confused because people seem to keep suggesting that this regulation for the rural zone applies to the whole valley, which of course it doesn't. And where the growth plan has suggested we might need 4,000 housing units by 2035. It also, I think I saw a study in there that showed that there were 8,000 buildable units close into Helena and in what I think we're calling the transition or the suburban zone. So the other part of that is that people are saying that, people want a single family home and a lot to raise their kids. I totally get that. But when I went to the National Association of Home Builders, there's a report about affordability and, getting rid of some of this single family zoning, exclusionary zoning, and allowing more mixed uses and mixed types of zones, you get more affordability. So it seems to me that we have, every community in the West that's facing growth has an affordability problem. The big cities where they have the tech growth have affordability problems. This is something that's not going to be resolved with this ordinance. But there is an awful lot of thinking going on about it. And I guess one thing I would agree with some of the more recent comments I heard a little bit earlier is about kind of reconvening this development standards working group. Whether or not you pass this zoning map and ordinance, I think we really need to do that. And I would add to that suggestion that you have a working group for each zone, because I think in the suburban and urban area, there's different issues to be resolved. And again, I think we have to keep track, keep sight of what the goals are here. You said in the growth policy, or we've said in the adopted growth policy, that we're trying to, someone said there's no science behind this, but there's an awful lot of reporting in that growth plan that talks about the problems with roads and affordability of roads, and talks about some areas that have limitations on water quality and on water quantity, and we have concerns about water quality. So I think you're justified in saying that these 5 issues come out of the growth plan. The question I think you're getting a lot of pushback on is, does the 10-acre minimum really resolve it? What should the map be? I think that when you get down to the actual regulations in the rural zone for all the different uses of allowed uses and not allowed uses and the lot sizes, all that detail, it is a lot to take in when this is the first time you've been confronted with zoning. I'm not sure why we went this way, why we, hindsight is it's not worth much, but if we agree on the map and the zones, and then we say in the rural zone, what's going to work here to meet these 5 issues? What's going to keep, the road, the county's ability to create decent roads and all that? What's going to make that work? And you've put forward this ordinance, the planning staff's put forward in this ordinance, suggesting it would do that. And you're hearing people that don't agree. Sometimes it seems to me the arguments aren't always coherent. I understand the developers feeling they're being forced to take on all these road costs, and yet they're against the cluster design idea, which seems to me in a development would lower the cost the developer would have to spend. And I've heard in the opposition saying that when you do this cluster idea, that you've just totally restricted the rest of that open space. And I went back and listened to I think it was a June 25th planning board meeting, and planning director Italiano specifically said that they're trying to build flexibility in here. So if you did say you took 20 acres and you put density along the edge of those lots, I guess it would be two houses, but you could go back and if conditions have changed, relook at that, do some kind of a variance or whatnot. So there does seem to be flexibility here, but I have to admit that it does seem onerous to try to figure out the variance process, all these processes you need to go through, right out of the chute. I'm not sure. It does seem we need more education for the people that are going to be impacted by this. I think the paper could really help here. I know that the director and the staff have answered a lot of the questions that keep coming up. And I know you're going to have a question answering section of your meeting on the 6th. And I know you have right in the zoning page on the website, there are answers to many of the questions that keep getting asked. So I think it would be really helpful to get those somewhere and really point out the answers that the county has said to a lot of these questions. And where there is conflict, I think you can work with the newspaper to identify these key issues, show the differing opinions on them, and really try to start a discussion on you know, what the county's responsibility is to the current homeowners. You know, we've heard a lot from people that want to develop lots, but we haven't heard much from the people, you know, who have, I guess we're talking about the rural zone, say up in the North Hills, have bought, have built. You know, what's going on there that needs to be addressed. I know that there's over on the west side or the east side of the interstate, that recently you passed a subdivision over there on, it was a fairly dense subdivision in an area that's been mainly 20 acres to now, and that I'd heard that they had tried to get a special zoning district in to keep it at 20 acres. You weren't allowing new special zoning districts at the time, or so that's what I heard was said. And since under state law, they were able to demonstrate they had water, there wasn't much you could do, even though it kind of goes against what the growth policy wants to see. You're creating more density in an area where you wanted less density. So, you know, state law has a role in this, and I think people need to understand that. I'm not sure I agree with the opponents who say state law, subdivision regs, DEQ, DNRC, all that is adequate because it's parcel by parcel. And the growth policy points out that we can't afford to do high density, long way out, parcel by parcel. I don't have an answer to the takings question. It seems that if Mr. Heron is right, 80% of the people in this country have been taken from and don't know it, because we have zoning that's been going on for over 100 years. People have gotten rich off of it. I'm not sure where that argument goes, but it'd be nice to have, for the public to see what's really relevant here. And again, I think the newspaper might be able to help us out with this. So I'm rambling, but I know you got to be there till 4. I guess you don't have a lot of people speaking, and some people have spoken more than once. But I think that what's before you is passing the zoning map, which I pretty much, passing the zoning map and passing this particular ordinance. And, you know, it is difficult for some people when the ordinance isn't even fully written. You have blank spaces for the suburban and the urban zones. And people have a hard time saying yes to that. I'm not sure if this process has really been the best way to go. I think that it would make sense on the rural zone, Helena Valley Planning Area Rural Zone, for the Birdseye and Birdseye North areas, Rimini, Hauser Lake areas to maybe have their own specific codes that aren't the same as more urban type codes as far as lot sizes and setbacks and heights and all that kind of thing. I think those things should grow out of some kind of iterative process, working with each section in these different zones. I remember when the Development Standards Working Group was going on, I wasn't able to go to those meetings, but I know that the idea was that zoning was not considered the best tool, particularly lot size zoning. And so how would, what design standards look like as you move out from the urban zone? How would that somehow be, how would that help? And I really don't know where that was left. I still think in the rural zone, we're sort of stuck with, if somebody comes in with a 20-acre lot that they want to put 1.5 acre houses on with, community well or individual wells. As we've seen, state law, if the water's there, will approve it, but that doesn't seem to be what we think we need in the rural zone. And I don't know how we resolve that. Part of it is cost of roads, part of it is fire danger. We've seen what happens when you have a lot of homes up in the hills, in the trees. There's a wildfire, there's bad roads. Can you just stop that growth in the trees? I don't know. Given what's going on with fires and the cost of these fires, who's going to pay for protecting those homes? If we're going to have working groups, and I would sort of second that recommendation. And again, I think they make sense for each zone because each zone is going to have a different set of dynamics. I'd really like the county and the city. I'd really like some kind of a finance committee to look at the budgets of the two, the two commissions. Look down the road and say, what's the best way to use our tax dollars for infrastructure? And then how can our planning tools kind of really incentivize the best use of our tax money? Another comment was made today that if you cut the number of homes, particularly out in the rural zone, you are going to get less tax revenue, and you can't pay for the roads. Well, I think it's been written that suburban, particularly more rural suburban density, does not pay for itself anyway. And I guess one last thing I'd like to say, and I'd like to see some discussion about this in the paper, and as we go forward. I live in the county, but we own a house in town that we rent, and we pay taxes in the city and in the county. And city taxpayers live in the county and pay a significant amount of county taxes to go into the county budget. And to say that the city that wants to see more planning in the valley has nothing to say about the valley, that's not accurate. And if we have to build if we're required because of septic tank failure, water quality failure in the valley because of how this is built out, and we're required to put a new sewer system down by Lake Helena, that is going to be very expensive. And I'm sure there are a lot cheaper ways to go by getting this planning right as we move forward here. The city just updated their growth policy. They have some implementation strategies for the next couple of years. I know you're talking about updating the county growth policy. I'm assuming that means that you haven't really looked at the other planning areas, because you did do this, fairly extensive 2-volume document on the Helena planning area. And I think we should work with what's there, update it. We have a new, the state is being, there's a new uptick in people looking to come to Montana and buy land. So it's more important that we have some clear messages of what kind of growth we want where, and to the extent that it's legal under federal and state law, I think we should plan aggressively. But we should have the communities that we're planning with have input on that so that they're getting the neighborhoods they want within the limits of what the law can do. So I'm kind of rambling. I was trying to write it all down, but I think I was clear enough, and I hope it helps, and appreciate that you've given so much time for people to comment. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much. And you don't need to read it back to me. I think you got the recording, and I think my ports are more general than specific. So thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Mr. Milton, thank you very much for your comments today and the other day as well. So I just want to let folks who are on Zoom know that our room continues to be empty of in-person commenters. So Karen, do we have anybody with their hands raised on Zoom?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Very good. So we will, as advertised, be taking public comment in person or via Zoom until 4:15 today. So if you're on Zoom and you want to participate, please just raise your hand.
still have the same number on there.
We've dropped to 14.
Hello there. You ready? How are you?
Oh, I'm good, you.
Good.
Oh, I'm not recording at the moment.
Yours is thin.
Break, we will reconvene at 4 o'clock. Calling this meeting back to order. It is now 4 p.m. and we will be accepting public comment, oral public comment until 4:15 today, either in person or via Zoom. And please bear in mind that we will be accepting written public comment until September 30th. That's a Wednesday at noon.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, this is Greg McNally with the Community Development Planning Department. Just wanted to remind those that are participating via Zoom, we currently have nobody in the audience that is here to provide public comment, but we are, again, hoping to accept public comment from anyone that might show up, and will accept public comment from anybody that raises their hand on Zoom. So if you are participating via Zoom and you wish to comment, please raise your hand to notify us that you have a comment. And if you're participating via Zoom on your phone, please press *9 to notify us that you want to raise your hand and that you'll have a comment. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. McNally.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, this is Greg McNally with Community Development Planning Department. I thought we would just check in briefly to see if we have any Zoom participants who would like to comment with our Zoom moderator.
Okay, we have 5 minutes left for public comment. Do we have anybody who has their hand raised for Zoom?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And just for the record, we have no one in the audience waiting to speak to us. It is now 4:10. Okay, everybody, it is 4:15. So before we entertain a motion, I have a couple of things I'd like to say. We have had 14 hours of in-person ability to comment. Also Zoom, also people able to phone in. I want to remind everybody that you can continue to submit written public comment about this issue until Wednesday, September 30th at noon. This has been a long process, and there are people who absolutely need to be thanked. And first of all, In no particular order, because they all really deserve our thanks. HCTV, thank you very much for all your patience. And you perform a wonderful service for the people of our community and help us. Thank you for helping us make this accessible to everyone. I'd like to thank the members of our IT staff who have made Zoom possible, as well as the phone in and all of the rest of the things that they do for us on a regular basis. I certainly want to thank the Great Northern Hotel. As you can see, this is a large expanse of room that we have taken up, and of course we paid them fair market value for this, but it's very important for the commission to be able to hear what the people have to say and also be able to socially distance. So this was a considerable expense, but we believe that that was made in the best interest of the public being able to express themselves on this important issue. I can't say enough thanks to our administrative staff, and that would be Nadine, Karen, Ms. Chronic, and Roger Baltz, our Chief Administrative Officer. Certainly our attorneys who have been with us, very much appreciate their help. And most of all to our commenters who took time out of their schedules. And I want to point out that on the first day we had hearings from 9 in the morning, and we concluded, I believe, at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So then, in order to make sure that we had people who were not able to get off work, that they were able to come in the evening. So we had another meeting that extended until 9 o'clock in the evening, so that people would be able to come if that better suited their schedule. And then, of course, today we had our meeting from 1, and we just shut off the public comment at 4:15. So all of those people who have participated in this process, we appreciate everyone who came and spoke. We appreciate everyone who helped make this happen. This is local government in action. And so with those thanks, from the bottom of all three of us, Jim's not here, but I know Commissioner Hunthausen feels the same, as do I. So with that said, Commissioner Hunthausen, Chair will entertain a motion. Now wait a minute, I forgot the stars of the show, Peter and Greg, who have done yeoman's work on this. We really, really appreciate all the work, all the staff that you did. And also we've got Warby here, we've got people who have done just tremendous work. And planners that you don't see here today that have been working behind the scenes. Wow, thanks for everybody. Huge, huge, huge investment. Okay, all right, Commissioner Hunthausen, are you ready for a motion?
Madam Chair, thank you. Yes. I move to close the oral comment portion of the public hearing and to continue to accept written comment received by the county until noon on Wednesday, September 30th, 2020. I further move to include into our record for review the proceedings of the Consolidated City and County Planning Board and all written and oral comments provided to the Planning Board, the Planning Board's deliberations and recommendations, and all recordings of their meetings. I further move to continue the meeting until Tuesday, October 6th, 2020 at 9 a.m. at this location, the Great Northern Hotel Conference Center.
I'll second that motion. Is there further discussion?
Madam Chair, I'd just like to ask Mr. McNally if someone is interested in providing written comment between now and noon on the 30th, where and how would they best do that?
Madam Chair, Commissioner Hunthausen, Greg McNally with the Community Development Planning Department. If folks would like to provide written comment, we will be receiving them at our offices in room 230 of the City County Building at 316 North Park Avenue. We will also receive them via email at planning@lccountymt.gov. And in the event that comments are also sent to the Commissioner's office, I imagine the Commission will forward those comments to our office, and then we will make sure they wind up into your packet at the, when all public comment has been received.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, so we've had a motion and a second. Is there further discussion, Commissioner Hunthausen?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Please let the record reflect that Commissioner McCormick was not able to be with us, so that was a unanimous motion 2-0. We are now at that part of the meeting where the commission will accept public comment on any public matter that is within the jurisdiction of the commission that is not on today's agenda. Is there any public comment?
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
just a quick comment. I really appreciate the thank yous that you laid out for everyone, and I think you hit everyone under the sun, but I'm not sure, did you say the sheriff's office as well? So I wanted to thank the sheriff's office for
You
their,
bet. They were terrific, and thank you very much to the, thanks a lot, Andy, because
and I think the Helena Police Department was outside on a couple of occasions helping out as well.
Okay, thank you very much. And is there any public comment? And Karen, do we have anybody with their hand raised on Zoom for public comment?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Okay, and seeing no one in the audience, seeing no one come forward, we are adjourned.